Navigating Smartsheet can get messy as you create more and more assets using Control Center or collaborating with other teams. You find that you see more and more sheets and reports and dashboards. It can get confusing on how to navigate between them all. Today we'll go over some of the best techniques to navigate around, as well as how to make a sheet to keep yourself organized within Smartsheet. All right, let's first review how to leverage the features that Smartsheet provides most effectively. On the left-hand side, you'll see the Home button, Notifications, Search, Browse, Recents, Favorites, the Resource Management, Work Apps, the ability to create, and then looking at your specific workspace. This would show you what workspace you're in right now. That can be really handy when you're wanting to make sure that you're in the right place. You also can use the File and Properties to see where you're at as well. The Home button will take you too far out. Typically, it's not the best place to keep everything sorted because it's more algorithmic, showing you just items that you navigated to. It doesn't have specific context around how you work. Notifications are a great way to quickly react to assignments or alerts from team members, but not so helpful when you're trying to be proactive. Of course, the search tool now is over here as well. It can be very powerful. You can leverage the search tool to not only look across sheets and titles, but you also can even look within rows. The search tool is extremely helpful. I will warn you that when you create a new asset, it does take it a couple minutes to be indexed. So don't be surprised if you created something and you can't find it right away. You'll find that you can usually find it after a couple minutes and refreshing your browser. Browse is very helpful at first when you don't have a lot of assets because it's showing you the entire structure of your Smartsheet ecosphere. It organizes it by sheets and workspaces. Workspaces typically are the way to organize it, kind of like a folder, and you can control sharing levels at workspace level or on the individual level. Bear in mind that you can't share a specific folder inside. The closest Smartsheet has to that is the Collections tool, where you can share a specific set of assets. We'll speak more to that in another video. Now, Recents are probably my favorite as far as the navigation options, because what Recents allow you to do is allow you to have a specific set of bookmarked items that you can navigate back to. These are usually the ones that you want to have top on your radar. So they're sheets that you commonly go back to, and then below that, you'll have a history of the sheets that you recently navigate to. I will warn you, as you have more and more assets that you navigate to in Smartsheet, that list starts to get a little bit out of sync, because if you're doing multiple tabs and you're seeing many assets, it doesn't always show the most recent. But if you're keeping it simple and you don't have too many assets to navigate across, I find the Recents to be extremely effective. Favorites is also very powerful, but I will warn that when you use favorites, you'll find that you have to keep that list clean. You can easily star anything that you're working with, but the problem is that if you star too many, it devalues it, and you see just too many assets in there. Resource management work apps are helpful, but they're really not involved with asset management and especially navigating around. So how do you keep organized inside Smartsheet when you have all these ways to click around, but not really a lot of context on what they are? It can become quite tribal in your knowledge of where things are in Smartsheet, and that's hard to train other users on. So what I find is it's effective to create a navigation sheet. Now, we have many ways we call this, depends on the solution and the context that you're building it for. But the idea of it is to be a list organizing the most important assets in Smartsheet. What I typically do is I have a hyperlinked sheet. It can either be a hyperlink or it can be specific, a Smartsheet link. Smartsheet links are more powerful when you're creating navigation within a project structure, because then when you're duplicating it, the Smartsheet link ties to the newly created asset instead of the previous one. In my case, this is more portfolio level. It won't matter that much if I have a URL. The biggest difference is that if I click on it, it's going to open up a new tab for me. That can sometimes be handy. So now, what else would I put in my navigation sheet? First of all, the purpose. What is the sheet for? That's a short blurb on what that sheet is doing. It's important to do for the admin because as you create more and more sheets, it's going to be hard to remember what does what, especially if certain sheets have overlapping features or overlapping use cases. Also, it's going to be important to have a label. Like, is this a sheet, report, or dashboard? In my case, I labeled it a sheet anyway, but often that's redundant. So it's better to actually have a label on the asset. And I would say that if I were getting fancy with it, I would even use conditional formatting to update the color so that I can see immediately if it's a sheet, report, or dashboard, having different types of colors to contrast and make your eyes immediately see the difference between the different assets. And then finally, level. It doesn't have to be called level, but the idea of it is this something that is at the portfolio level? Is this something that's standalone, not used by anything else? Or is it duplicated within a project? When I say project level, that means it's created inside a project and duplicated each time. So if I said this is at the project level, when as an admin, I would know that means this sheet has been duplicated every time there's a project from that blueprint or saved as new in that folder. And then finally, notes. Notes are where you can maybe talk about what's going on with it right now. Hey, we're working on an update to this sheet, or this sheet is potentially going to be deleted. Notes like that. You can go crazy with different columns, and I would warn that there's a lot of ways you could label this information, but it starts to become a diminishing return for you, because if you spend all that time trying to update the information about it, you find that users don't come back and update it often enough, and you'll have incomplete information. So I recommend keeping it light and simple, something that would only take a couple seconds to update for a new asset created. Now, it can feel a little frustrating to basically have a notebook to track your notebooks in a way with Smartsheet, but I find it's very powerful, especially when it comes to onboarding. We see that users struggle with seeing so many different assets, remembering what they are for, because especially you can only label a sheet in one way. If you use collections, you could use different labels for those specific users. But when you're navigating inside Smartsheet, one asset name is going to stick for every different type of asset you have. So you want to make sure that it's easy for users that aren't used to the nomenclature to be able to understand what it's doing, and especially users coming into the solution. This can really serve as a great onboarding tool in the future, where you can list it all out, and even you can have a training process around it. Smartsheet tends to be a great way to organize information, so why not use it to organize Smartsheet as well? If you have any thoughts or questions on what I've talked about today, please feel free to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe.